Welcome to the CodeCast podcast. Real-world insights for your daily medical coding and billing processes. And now, here's your host, Terry Fletcher.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the CodeCast podcast today. My name is Terry Fletcher. So we are at the 191st episode of the CodeCast podcast. I can hardly believe it myself. So it's pretty exciting to know that we're almost at 200 episodes. We're over 270,000 downloads with 240,000 listeners. So we're pretty excited about that. So today my topics are actually a mixed bag of some compliance, some audit issues that have come up, and also some issues that have some legal kind of connotation to them. And they've been making their way around LinkedIn by attorneys that I trust, and they may affect you, some of the issues that they've been talking about, and your practice, along with a new PA issue, physician assistant issue, that you might have seen in some of the healthcare news feeds as well, that I just want to bring to your attention because I just find it interesting that a marketing company would spend 3 years on something that's having such major pushback. And I'll explain what that is when we get to it. Also, if you are looking for some up-to-date information for healthcare, and one of the things I like to do is I like to read, and I like reading blogs. I like to make sure that I'm reading the authoritative references, from trusted sources. And it's interesting because everything always seems to be a video. And that's out there. Absolutely. It's shown that some people want a video. But I've noticed that a lot of people have stopped reading, and they're reading, clickbait things, and they're not reading the entire article. So some things have come up recently, just for an example. Something came up last week, actually, as of, I think it's June 11th, where Friday, actually, I know it's June 11th, where Medicare has said they're going to pay an additional amount of money for homebound patients getting their COVID vaccination. Well, it's homebound. It's not just patients who are at home. And everybody all of a sudden went back and told their physicians, guess what? If you send one of the nurse practitioners, or you go out and you give the COVID vaccination, obviously if you're a vaccine center, for a patient that's at home, you're going to get an additional $40. Not true. You have to document why the patient can't get to a pharmacy or an actual physician office or vaccine site, why it's difficult for them, if it's a condition related. There's just a lot of things on the actual article that talked about that. So make sure you're not just, again, you'd always hear me say clickbait. As somebody who also writes, for NFL sites, it's amazing to me how many people don't read the article. But the reason I mention that is that I love articles and I love posts, especially legal posts that have to do with healthcare. So if you're looking for some up-to-date information, there's 2 publications that I would send you to. There's actually a few more, but these are 2 that I really like. And one is Becker's Health. So if you Google that, go to Becker's Health, and you will find that you can even break it down by specialty. So I'm on for ASCs, which are ambulatory surgery centers, and gastro, cardiovascular. I think I'm on 9 different emails that I get from them. That might fill up your box a little bit too much. That's why I said you want to make sure you do it by specialty, or you can get their general once a day email. The other one is something called Lexology, and I actually found this out. This is a legal site that you have attorneys that are blogging on different information. Some can be employment information, some can be healthcare, some can be the provider relief funding, some of the COVID situations that are happening. You name it, it's out there. And I actually found this out by an attorney that I trust immensely. Actually, she happens to be my cousin, actually my cousin's daughter, so my second cousin, Brianna Santoli. And she just started listening to the podcast, so shout out there to Brianna. But it was just interesting just to read some of the information that comes from attorneys from all over the country. So those are 2 I'm going to give you right now. Actually, let me give you one more. Why not? Smart Brief. So if you look that up, and you can get emails from them. And I like Smart Brief because it's an affiliation of AHIMA, American Health Information Association. And I really like that because it gives you only healthcare and only healthcare information and what's happening with Medicare and, the administration, but also what's happening, let's say, with travel information with regard to healthcare. It's all about healthcare, but what goes on in our daily lives when it comes to healthcare. So those are 3 things that I would definitely, 3 sources, and again, they're trusted sources that I would look into. Okay, so I wanted to talk to you first when we get into these trusted sources about a couple of articles that have come up. And one, again, two of them, actually two are from legal experts. One comes from the offices of Nexon Pruitt and Jenna Godlewski. She is a very active attorney. She's also very active on social media, along with Sonal Patel. Sonal's not a attorney, but she is a healthcare consultant like myself, and they put out some really good information. But I was looking at her last post, and it was on the SMRC intensified auditing for 2021. And what is that? That is the Supplemental Medical Review Contractor audits. And what are they auditing? So because 2020 saw much less, medical review auditing, because CMS suspended audits between March 30th and August 3rd of 2020, now they're coming back full force, not just pre and post payment audits, but also, COVID audits, OIG audits, you name it, audit. It's like making your head spin. But also with the lifting of the CMS suspension, the CMS Supplemental Medical Review Contractor audits have started. That's the SMRC audits, and those are in full swing. So I just want to give you some of the highlights from an article that Jenna wrote, so I definitely want to give her a shout out for the information. But first, who is the SMRC? So these are providers that are chosen for the audit and for auditing these services. And Noridian Healthcare Solutions, they were selected as the SMRC in 2018, and they go for 3 to 5 years. And as the contract for this, Noridian conducts nationwide medical reviews for Part A, Part B, and DME claims. DME, durable medical equipment, is really huge right now. I see podiatrists getting just slammed with some SMRC audits right now. So what can it review? So they can review those services, again, Part A, Part B, and DME, and supplies can be audited. And if the medical review target is assigned to it by CMS. And so CMS basically says, this is what we're seeing, and we need you to basically do an audit. So the CMRC is intended to be kind of like a centralized medical review resource that can perform large volume medical record reviews nationally. And so how are providers chosen for this audit? So that would be your practice, your hospital, your facility. So overall, the main reason providers are targeted for SMRC audits is if the CMS data shows that the provider is billing specific codes at rates that are outliers when compared to the national average. So you would think that would be all audits, but this is specifically to certain codes. And what they do is the SMRC review targets are assigned by CMS, and they focus on an analysis of that national claims data, and they're identified by certain agencies. So again, it's almost like a branch to push some of the work off from OIG and the Government Accountability Office, GAO, and then also CERT, that's the Comprehensive Error Rate Testing. You probably have seen that, denial once in a while. And then the PEPR, which is the Program for Evaluating Payment Patterns Electronic Report, and other sources as well. So what are their current projects? Okay, so what are they targeting right now? And you can see if you fall into this. So botulinum toxins, DME supplies in non-covered SNFs. Now this one I knew that was going to happen, the DRG COVID 20% add-on payment. I did a Talk 10 Tuesday segment on this in August of last year. Because what happened is that basically Medicare came out, CMS came out and said, remember all that information about how to code and how to report a COVID diagnosis. Well, everybody did that, not always based on a positive test result, and they were getting paid in the hospital an additional 20%. Well, that was the facility. Well, they said, well, no more of that as of September 1st. If you don't have a positive lab result in the patient's medical record, then you're going to have to give us back money, and it is not valid for that extra 20%. And so they changed the rules basically. So that's being looked at. DRG thyroid, parathyroid, and thyroglossal procedures, hospice portfolios, inpatient rehab facilities, IRF, inpatient rehab facility stays, longer stays than usual, intravenous immune globulin, IVIG, and then outpatient hyperbaric oxygen therapy, so that's HBO, polysomnography, skilled nursing facilities. Those are always going to be audited, which actually kind of surprises me only because I don't know if you know how skilled nursing facility works. My dad was in one for a while, and how it works is that you have to basically qualify for it because you can't live on your own and you have to be monitored on taking medications, etc. And so what happens is, and usually it's also for some physical therapy to get stronger. My father-in-law was there too. And so what they do though is that to be covered, let's say you're Medi-Medi under the Medi-Cal program or Medicaid nationwide, you actually have to be certified every 21 days. And so I'm really surprised that it's on the SMRC projects, only because that's almost like a double oversight. But you know what? You don't want people in skilled nursing facilities that don't need to be there because it's hard to find a bed. And I don't know if you know this, but they're getting about $550 a day. So especially Medi-Medi patients, that's why they try to always change people from their Medicare Advantage plan to something like that because it's actually more money. Specimen validity, part 2, spinal cord stimulator, TENS units, therapeutic shoes for diabetics. This is a big deal, especially in podiatry practices. Therapy reviews, and then transforaminal epidural injections. So just know that's what's on the work plan. So if that's anything that you provide or that you might be concerned with as far as being targeted, just know that's there. And what do they look like? So this is specific. So you know you're being audited under the SMRC because Noridian will initiate an SMRC by sending an additional document request. It's called an ADR. It'll be in a distinctive green envelope with the Noridian SMRC logo on it. Once the review is completed, the provider will then receive the results letter. In some cases, it's about, I would say, usually 30 to 45 days. The provider then is given 14 days to request what they call a D&E. That's a discussion and education session. And this allows for the provider basically to have a discussion of medical review findings, education to avoid future denials, and an opportunity to submit missing documentation. Then when that project is completed, Noridian will forward any identified overpayments to CMS, who will direct the MAC carrier to begin overpayment recoupment actions. And then the doctor or the provider has to decide if they're going to begin the CMS appeals process, claims appeals process, or how they're going to handle it. So if you're one of those providers that fit in that category, it's a really a good time to start looking at your documentation. Make sure your coding is, up to par, and that you're not basically going to have to deal with this moving forward. Because if you've already received an audit, you want to start getting together those requested records and really focus on making sure that they're well organized, that you have what they're asking for, and that the clinical documentation is there. So if they're asking about the necessity of care, and that's what they're always wanting to know, make sure that you have also a physician or an expert in support of those cases. And so it's really important to be proactive on this. So I just want to thank Jenna for that information, because that was pretty important. Another change that came up, and I'm going to focus just on a state specific here, and actually this was posted by, again, attorney Brianna Santoli in New Jersey. So changes to New Jersey provider immunity after the end of the public health emergency. And so I thought this was interesting. So on June 4th, Governor Murphy in New Jersey signed A582 into law, ending the COVID public health emergency. Immediately after signing the legislation, the governor issued an executive order number 244, officially lifting the COVID public health emergency in New Jersey that, again, was in place since March 9th of 2020. But what is interesting about the blog, The Read, that was on this Juris Doctor report was that it really talks about the modification of the state and the civil and criminal immunity provided to healthcare providers under the first order, and now how that's going to be adjusted and when things will expire under the second order. And so it's really important to really look at this and just kind of understand what's going on there. So, there's certain exceptions, as in any administrative orders, directive, or waivers issued by any state agency. They relied also on the existence of the public health emergency including the Department of Health. And so they need to kind of be in sync of what was extended, what wasn't. I know sometimes the DOH in different states, they extend certain things and orders when they're not necessarily extended through the local government. And so in the government, remember, the governor's request still has to go to the state Senate and Assembly to get passed. So anyway, take a look at that information, because we have the same thing coming on in California. We have some things happening in Illinois that are right along that line. So, and again, that was posted to that Lexology site that she posted to LinkedIn. So again, thank you to Attorney Brianna Santoli for that. Now, the next thing that comes up, and this one is interesting. So I don't know if you know this, but the physician assistants over the last, so PAs, over the last 3 years have been trying to rebrand their profession, okay? And so it's interesting because I have a hard time with what they're trying to do. So what they did, let me just put it in kind of a nutshell. Physician assistants recently moved to change their title from physician assistant to physician associate. And that's going to create confusion for patients who care is being provided for. And AMA and also the Association for Doctors of Osteopathic Medicine, so DOs, they are not on board with this. They said this is, the official title for physician assistants is PA, physician assistants, but the AAPA, American Academy of Physician Assistants, think because they voted to adopt this physician associate role as their official title, means that they can just, change it. But the problem is that, again, the Academy hired a healthcare marketing research firm and branding firm to determine the best title and marketing strategy for the profession. And yes, some, PAs do report, or I should say treat independently, but they still have to have a supervising physician, which again makes them an assistant. But this is not compatible with a lot of state laws, and you have to have truth in advertising. And when you look at what an associate is, that is a lateral defined person. So if you're an associate at a law firm, it typically means that you're another attorney. If you're an associate in a medical practice, it means that you're another physician. So, patients already have difficulty knowing who their physician is and who the PA is based on if a patient, if a provider walks in their room. And it's important for patients to understand transparency and clarity on knowing who is providing their care and not more confusion. And of course, the AAPA said something to the effect that, most PAs have, name tags on that say that they're a PA. That's not enough. Sometimes patients don't have their glasses on and they can't see that, but that is just not a good thing. And I'm absolutely in agreement with the AMA about this, because I think it will really just frustrate patients and actually just give them information that isn't correct. I know years ago my daughter had, I think, how long was it ago? So she's 26. She was, I think, 15, and she had terrible right-sided abdominal pain, and it was right at the beginning of a softball tournament. It was a mess. And I'm like, okay, it sounds like you might have appendicitis. Let's go to the ER. And the person that came in scrubs and everything never said that he was a PA. And turned out, we found out later, but when the bill came, but it was actually from, don't let your kids drink those energy drinks. No Monsters, none of those things, because they're terrible. No Red Bulls. They basically attack your intestines. And he said, Summer, you've inflamed an area down there and you're having a hard time. Stop doing that. And ever since then, now they make her sick. So she's like, I've never done it ever since then, and I've just felt better. But the problem is that I had no idea that was a PA. Now, would that have made a difference for me? Being in the healthcare field, it would have. I don't mind when a physician extender comes in and follow up, or if I'm going in for a well check, or if I'm going in for a routine checkup. But when I'm taking my child, my teenager or my young child to an ER and spending all that time waiting and dealing with that, thinking that they have an emergency situation going on, I want to see a physician, and I want to be told that it's a physician. And so physician associate to me is not a PA. And so I agree with AMA on this one. So you can make your own decision on that one, but I find that to be and I'm going to get cards and letters on this, I just know it. I find that to be very highly arrogant on behalf of the PAs to think that that's okay. So that really bothers me. Okay, so I wanted to talk to you about our coding question today, and let's see where we're at with it. And so today, now I know I bring up cardiology every once in a while, but I had a coding question from somebody that recently, and I was like, okay, I need to clarify this because obviously they're not taking courses or listening to my podcast on this. And guys, you should know it's very warm here in California, so I just turned on my fan. So if you can hear that in the background, I apologize, but it's a little warm where I'm recording right now. But anyway, so what I got, and it was for one of my Coding Corner clients, and who shall be nameless, but basically something to the effect that, can you please look at this EOB and this report? And we're getting a denial on the 92929 code, which is a branch PCI code. It's a branch stent code for one of the coronary arteries. And can you please tell us how we can get this paid? Okay, so I'm looking at the report and looking at the codes they sent over and looking at the EOB and realizing the entire report was coded wrong. So first of all, the first thing that the person that coded it didn't do is they didn't look to see that it was a Medicare patient. So there's Medicare and everybody else when it comes to coding interventions under cardiology. And so that was the first thing. So the 92929 wasn't even going to be an option, okay? So the second thing, though, as I noticed, is that they coded from the header, which is the list. And I've warned people about that before. I'm sure you've heard me talk about that to the point where you're like, okay, Terry, we get it. Well, this is a thing again where the header said one thing was done, but if you looked at the report detail, you would have realized that the physician actually intervened on 3 different vessels, 3 different stenting procedures. They also did a procedure on a graft. Anyway, bottom line, there was 5 codes, and actually the modifiers are wrong as well. 5 codes that were reported, 7 codes should have been reported, and the one report was a loss of about, I would say, $750. So then I said, hey, I can't even help you with an appeal here because you need to send a corrected claim. This is wrong. And she's like, oh, well, that's the way we've always coded it. And I'm like, but you've been a client for 3 to 4 years. How's that possible? So then they said, well, we lost a coder and we just went off one of the, and I hate this word, cheat sheet. I hate it, that we had. And I said, not from you, you didn't. I said, no, it wasn't from you. It was some other place we got. We think we got it off Facebook. Oh my goodness. Okay. So, my head is spinning around when I heard that. I said, you know what? Have the administrator give me a call, an email. Let's take a look and see how your coding has been for the last year. And she's like, she's not going to be happy. I'm like, well, she's not going to be happy if it continues. So let's take a look. Well, it turns out I looked at 50 reports and they only had a passing rate of 10%. They missed so many codes and there were so many errors made. And it was in excess of, I would say, about $250,000 and 50 reports. So you can only imagine what it's been like for the last 3 to 4 years. The reason I bring this up is that if you don't know the specialty or if you're unsure about what you're coding, you need to take a course. You need to reach out to people who know what's going on. Many of you are that listen to my CodeCast. Many of you are part of my coding membership that I mentioned, the Coding Corner, and that's been around now for 27 years, so we have so many people on that they get coding questions responded to. We help you with appeals every week. So, and we get at least 100 questions a week, and we are on top of things. So if you lose a staff member, if you need help coding, if you're unsure about certain things, please reach out to us because you don't want to lose that money. And it's going to be really hard to go back and recoup because sending a corrected claim and all of that is just going to not only flag you because so many were billed wrong, but also you've lost that revenue and who knows if you can get it back. And so this is where I just want to caution you, and it's really important. It actually made me very sad to just see that somebody wouldn't reach out, and just the questions I did get over the last 3 to 4 years were maybe 5, and it had nothing to do with that. There was just assumptions made. So I'll stop on that bandwagon, but I definitely want you to know that that's what we're here for. So we are multi-specialty. We can handle almost anything that you send to us, but just make sure that you reach out if you have any questions. And it is a membership. It is a paid membership, but it is worth every penny so that you can get things done correctly. Our coding question today is brought to you by the District of Columbia Health Information Management Association, an affiliate of AHIMA, dchema.org, and Do, the nation's #1 retirement app, Forbes' top-rated finance blog, do.com. That's DUE.com. We love money. Me too. Okay, so my personal tidbit this week. I mentioned the vaccines last week. Yes, I did have my second shot. And man, that was like getting hit by a truck. So just expect that. For those of you that are waiting to get your second one, you need to make sure you're not doing anything for 2 days. I was fine the next day, but on Friday it was a rough day. I felt like I just got run over, and it was very, very hard to it was the weirdest thing I've ever experienced. So, but I'm happy, it's all taken care of now. I've had both of them, and I'm good with that. So that's always good. And then on a positive note, I get to go to Napa in less than 10 days. So I'm very excited. So for those of you that know how much I need a vacation, just be really happy for me that I'm getting a vacation after not having one for over a year. And all of us, I know that, things are opening up and everybody's pretty excited about seeing people at baseball games without masks and just seeing people being able to enjoy their life again. So hopefully you're out. And what's interesting is remember to get out. You still sit there and think sometimes if you don't feel like cooking, okay, what are we going to order through DoorDash or Postmates or the apps? And you're like, wait, I don't have to do that anymore. Restaurants are actually open. So, take advantage of that. Even if you're still a little bit hesitant, sit outside if you want to, but definitely take advantage of getting outside. It's June, it's beautiful out, and it's really time for all of us to get back to living our lives. So hopefully everybody's getting out there. Well, that's it for me this week. Make it a great day, and I will talk to you next week on the CodeCast podcast.
For more information on medical coding, billing, auditing, and compliance, including how to hire Terry, follow Terry on Twitter at TerryCoder1, or visit her website at www.terryfletcher.net. Podcast producer Joe Kuzma. Music producer Dassassin Music.